What is the most important thing you want the American people to understand?
Right now, you're going to use cruise missiles or stealthy aircraft. So I believe it's a 2,000-pound bomb, and what affects that type of thing is what it hits and how deep the fusing goes. So you can get all sorts of plumes of varied sizes, and you can't draw any real conclusions about the size of the weapon just by looking.
In this village again on the outskirts of the southeastern city of Basra.
The 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, on the move once more. We're riding with them. This is our vehicle in conjunction with a convoy heading west now, leaving Basra behind us and the main oil field objective that they captured yesterday. But speaking of oil, take a look out the window here as we travel along. There, the brilliant orange plume. It seems to be a key indicator of an oil well that was set alight. There are said to be about 9 oil wells burning in this part of southern Iraq, nowhere near as bad as the projections some had made about the scorched earth policy of Saddam Hussein. And now take a look forward. This is the convoy, mostly made up of Marines of the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. That vehicle right there, an AAV, an amphibious assault vehicle. This convoy is heading off west to a new objective. So far, we haven't been told what that is, but eventually the goal is going to be all the way to Baghdad. For the Marines here, these amphibious vehicles work just as well in the desert as they do in water, and they're doing just fine on the highway, a highway that is shared with a lot of military might, all moving up from northern Kuwait and farther into Iraq. Martin Savage, CNN, with the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines in southern Iraq.
Preview of their plans. Maria, good morning.
Good morning, Paula. Well, I have to tell you, it seems the march is supposed to start in about 5 minutes, and large crowds are amassing literally in the middle of Midtown. We are on 34th Street and Broadway. Organizers said they expected tens of thousands of people to come out to the streets of Manhattan and say that they are against this war. And what I can tell you is what I'm seeing now is lots of people here, lots of police. But I did want to bring in some people who are going to be leading the march. Both of these women, Dawn Peterson and Colleen Kelly, are members of September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows. They both lost their brothers on September 11th, and they are both against this war. Colleen, what's going on for you now that this war has started?
Well, I'm here today because I am anti-war, and I'm not anti-troops, I'm not anti-government, I'm not anti-people, but I'm opposed to this war, and I'm opposed to the way our country's responding. I just think there's much better solutions and alternatives.
And for you, Dawn, I'm just wondering, you're a new member of September 11th Family, so what's going on for you? You just have gotten involved in this anti-war movement, and yet you're probably thinking about your brother as well.
Well, actually, I've been involved in the anti-war movement from the get-go and just sort of hooked up with Peaceful Tomorrows recently. For me, it was just essential to start speaking out and not see September 11th used as a reason to go and further American agenda.
Sentimiento muy patriótico, incluso de personas que no somos ciudadanas de este país, sino que simplemente, bueno, pues vivimos y trabajamos en el mismo, ¿no?
Efectivamente, estas son las imágenes en vivo y en directo que usted puede ver solamente por su cadena Telemundo en esta transmisión especial en vivo. Objetivo Saddam Hussein. Aquí en Telemundo usted va a poder presenciar los últimos detalles de esta guerra, una guerra que según los Estados Unidos se va a llevar a cabo de una forma distinta. Nunca antes en la historia de la humanidad se han visto ataques de la intensidad y de la cantidad de bombas que han utilizado las fuerzas de los Estados Unidos ya y que se espera utilizarán en las próximas horas y en los próximos días.
Y bueno, siguen llegando informaciones que confirman esa serie de fuertes explosiones que han estremecido Bagdad poquito después de caer la noche de este sábado. Algunas parecían incluso ocurrir en el centro de la capital.
Y en el centro de la capital, mientras vemos estas imágenes de Bagdad, que parece un puente. Marian, tú que estás...
Again, at about 11:22 Eastern Time, we got reports of yet another explosion being heard. That's on top of the 5 that were reported already. That was followed by what we saw as a flurry of Iraqi anti-aircraft
fire, which now appears to be in a lull. General Shepard, our expert on the ground at CNN Center, suggesting this may be coming in advance of yet another aerial burst.
With 1,400 arrests. Similar protests occurred in other U.S. cities like Chicago, Seattle, and Los Angeles.
I'm here tonight to be one of the voices to say that war should not happen.
In Boston and Washington, D.C., thousands of people blocked intersections during peaceful rallies. And right here in New York, protesters clashed with police in front of the MTV studios.
I don't know what it looks like, almost 40 or 50 official vehicles making their way to that protest.
Protesters also rallied in New York's Union Square.
We can't allow this unjust war to go on in our name.
Overseas, thousands of anti-war marchers gathered.
I don't think there should be a war too, and I think that they should find any way around it.
From London to Munich. And from Manila and Rome to Paris.
They gathered around 2 p.m. this afternoon down the Champs-Élysées, and they walked all the way to the opera and, well, yelling, protesting.
In the Middle East, some rallies turned violent. In Jordan and Yemen, thousands of anti-American demonstrators battled with police. In Cairo, 5,000 protesters clashed with the authorities, who used water cannons to disperse the crowd.
I know all over the world people are protesting. I know from my friends in Germany, they're on the street. Like this afternoon, they went on the street. And if we show united, we're against the war, this is gonna make a difference.
More protests are expected over the weekend, both the ones that had been planned before this stepped-up military campaign and others that are likely to be in response to it.
That sounds like the sound of jet engines. We don't see any anti-aircraft fire right now, which usually heralds another attack. But that clearly sounds like the jet engines flying over Baghdad right now. I think we heard it sound like an explosion. Let's listen again. Sounds like explosions far in the distance. Clearly not happening in central Baghdad. Let me pause again. Have subsided. We simply hear traffic.
Viene como del
This has been the case throughout Saturday. There have been sporadic attacks by U.S. forces, and that clearly sounded like the overflight of a jet plane. Could have been a Tomahawk, but it sounded like it was up there for a while. So U.S. planes, in spite of still rather robust air defenses we have seen in Iraq, still flying over the capital, although in this case we have seen no signs of anti-aircraft fire. Now keep in mind, this may be happening behind or out of the view of our cameras, but we have seen certainly plenty of anti-aircraft fire, and occasionally lifting off at targets either real.
What is the most important thing you want the American people to understand at this important juncture of history?
أولاً أن تنقل إليهم بأن شعب العراق ليس عدوهم.
First, convey to them that the people of Iraq are not the enemy of the American people.
وإذا أراد الشعب الأمريكي أن يعرف المزيد عن
If the American people would like to know the facts as they are, through a direct dialogue, then I am ready to conduct a debate with the President of the United States, President Bush, on television.
أقيم حوار مع السيد
I will say whatever I have to say about American policy.
الأمريكية على التلفزيون.
He will have the opportunity to say whatever he has to say about the policy of Iraq.
من ملاحظات على السياسة الأمريكية.
And this will be in front of the world, on television, in a direct, uncensored, honest manner. In front of, as I said, everyone. And then they will judge what is true and what is false.
This is new. You are suggesting, you are saying that you are willing, you are urging a debate with President Bush on television?
نعم هكذا.
Yes, that is my proposal.
الشعب الأمريكي مثل ما نعرف.
On films, we see that the Americans are courageous.
حتى إنه في
When challenged to a duel, they will not back down, just as the Arabs would not.
وهذه فرصة له إذا كان.
This will be an opportunity for him to convince the world, if he is committed to war. If he's convinced of his own position, this will be an opportunity for him to convince the world that he is right in making such a decision. It could also be an opportunity for us to tell the world our own side of the story and why we want to live in peace and security. I believe that it is the right of the American people, the Iraqi people, and the world that we show our evidence clearly so that they can see for themselves. So why should we hide from the people? Why shouldn't we show them both perspectives? We, as presidents, President of the United States and President of Iraq.
Until they get much nearer Baghdad. Aaron?
Okay, Walt, just hang on a second. We're looking at a sequence of pictures coming from Baghdad. Some of these are from stationary cameras that networks have placed there. Some of them, one of those shots at least, came from Al Jazeera.
Will Saddam Hussein attempt to lure Israel into this fight as a means of sort of unifying the Arab world?
Well, as I said, we're going to try to stay out of it as best we can. And there's a good chance that either he won't be able to, and if he does try, he won't succeed. I think there are very good understandings between my government, Prime Minister Sharon, and between the administration and President Bush.
Hearing it, and we wouldn't be getting any reports for a while.
All right, thanks very much. NBC's Monty Miggs, a retired Army general, now a consultant for NBC News. You'll be seeing a lot of him in the course of the next several days as well. Now it's coming up on dawn in Baghdad. This defies all the conventions of warfare. We generally fly at night. We hit them with everything that we've got all at the same time everywhere that we can. But this is not happening here.
Va a ser bien preciso. Así que ustedes se pueden imaginar que ellos saben cuándo se lanza un misil, cómo llega, qué efecto.
Y nuevamente que Dios cuide a nuestras tropas y a todas las familias de los soldados que están, ¿cómo decirle? Que están arriesgando su vida por todos nosotros.
Gracias, señor Ruiz. Es un momento sumamente difícil. El señor Ruiz ha tenido la gentileza de hablar con nosotros. Es interesante y difícil enfrentarnos en estos momentos. La voz cortada del padre dice mucho más que a veces las mismas palabras que él está pronunciando.
Esas son las imágenes de la joven que
Ruiz.
estábamos hablando, de Viviana Ruiz, una jovencita peruana. Esperemos que el señor Ruiz en este momento pues esté viendo para ver esta fotografía de su hija, que como él dijo muy valientemente está en Kuwait defendiendo a su patria. Interesante, nos dijo que su responsabilidad.
In military campaign planning, you always talk about centers of
live coverage of the war with Iraq. Good night.
A deceptively calm picture of Baghdad. A beautiful picture, in fact, but the deception is clear. The war has actually begun, and not a war that begins in a way that anyone would have expected. Small planes striking, small planes trying to flush out the leadership. We will tell you all about it as this hour begins. The news starts now. Target Iraq. This is a special edition of the News with Brian Williams on CNBC. Substituting tonight, Forrest Sawyer. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock on the East Coast, but it is 6 a.m. in Baghdad, and it is an unusual time for the war to begin. It has caught most people off balance. The tradition is that better if it is a completely moonless night, but that's all right. It's only after the high point of the moon, but they have begun to strike anyway. They started at 9:31 East Coast time. That actually is 5:30 in the morning. It is usually the dead of night when they like to strike. Not this time. They usually like to strike in force. Not this time. Beginning around 5:30 in Baghdad, we started hearing this sound.
Sirens, warning of the strike that was coming, but not what anyone expected, not the massive shock and awe. In fact, it was small, it was surgical. Small groups of F-117s, you have seen those. Those are the stealth fighters, hard for radar to depict. Here you see the anti-aircraft fires. It tried to pick them up, to no avail whatsoever. In fact,
For 20 years, she's pushed buttons. I'd like to express my extreme point of view. I'm not a Christian and I'm not a Jew. Now Madonna has pulled her latest music video, American Life, which was to have made its U.S. debut this Friday. Amid concerns, the message would be misunderstood. In fact, Warner Brothers Records distributed 2 excerpts from the video, then asked for them back. Even last week, the pop icon seemed anxious about how audiences would react.
I'm feeling like, you know, come on, just wait until you see it before you make a decision about it.
According to early reports, the video was initially a searing attack on war designed to shock and awe viewers. But it was toned down after the first bombs dropped on Baghdad.
The story that I had kind of seen was that originally, before the video was re-edited, it was pretty sharply critical of President Bush and a pretty strong anti-war statement.
Not. I mean, it's still, I think it still has anti-war sentiments about it, because at the end of the day, I would prefer that, you know, we work things out. Now we're at war, and all we can do is, you know, support our country and pray for the soldiers to get home.
The video had a political message, but it also questioned American ideals. I got a lawyer and a manager, an agent and a chef, 3 nannies, an assistant and a driver and a jet.
We are so lucky as Americans to have the freedoms that we have, and the capabilities and the, you know, the freedom to be whoever we want to be. But at the same time, you know, all these values that we have, you know, are they the things that will bring us happiness? I feel like the world is in a state of chaos, and we need to do things that are going to heal people and bring them together. And so just being provocative for the sake of being provocative doesn't really interest me right now.
So is the next single going to be a little bit lighter in tone?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to believe that Madonna was not looking to be controversial this time out. In fact, when she sat down for our interview, the first thing she said was that she was trying to avoid controversy. She also admits that she has courted it at various times in her career, but that this was not one of them, Lou.
Yeah, after watching what has happened to the Dixie Chicks, Denise, I think probably the lesson was not lost on a very savvy marketing talent as well as entertainer in Madonna.
Absolutely. In fact, she's sold 150 million albums worldwide, so she's no slouch when it comes to marketing her own records. And incidentally, now people know that she has one that's coming out on April 22nd.
With reiteration, Denise Kwan, thank you very much.
No problem, Lou.
Warner Brothers today announced it's changing its newspaper advertisements for the feature film What a Girl Wants. The original ad, which will remain intact for billboards and here on the Warner Brothers homepage, depicts the star of the movie.
Iraq. The president is set to address the nation at 10:15. We will be carrying that live from our broadcast here in MTV's studios in Times Square. But let's just give you a quick update on the United States.
Fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military.
En este momento Estados Unidos y sus aliados están en el comienzo de una operación militar para desarmar a Irak y liberar a su pueblo y defender a su pueblo de un peligro muy grande. Recibieron mis órdenes y comenzaron a atacar algunos objetivos seleccionados especialmente.
Una guerra en contra de nosotros. Más de 35 países están apoyando esta operación en estos momentos. Y están apoyando con inteligencia y con logística. Cualquier y todas estas naciones en esta coalición tienen y comparten el honor de servir en esta operación. Para todos los hombres y mujeres de las naciones, de los Estados Unidos, están trabajando en estos momentos para luchar por la paz y por la justicia.
Los enemigos a los que se enfrenten llegarán a ustedes con mucho valor. Los hombres, las personas que ustedes liberan, se darán cuenta el honor que representa el ejército. Estados Unidos se enfrenta a un enemigo que nunca se ha visto y que no respeta la moralidad. Saddam Hussein intentó utilizar a personas inocentes como escudos humanos y tratar de cometer atrocidades contra su propia gente. Queremos que los americanos y el resto del mundo sepa que las fuerzas de coalición van a hacer todo lo posible por evitar bajas civiles. Es una nación del tamaño de California y es mucho más grande y más difícil de lo que muchos piensan. Es un país que va a requerir nuestra ayuda constante. Nosotros tenemos mucho respeto por la gente, por su civilización, por su religión. No tenemos ninguna visión en Irak más que más que eliminar la amenaza que representa para su gente. Sabemos que los familiares de nuestros soldados están rezando que todos sus hijos regresen seguros y regresen pronto. Millones de norteamericanos están rezando junto con ustedes para que estén bien sus seres queridos y para proteger a los inocentes. Por su sacrificio, nosotros tienen ustedes el agradecimiento del pueblo norteamericano y nuestro agradecimiento. Y deben saber que en cuanto termine su trabajo, las tropas estarán regresando a casa. El pueblo norteamericano y el resto del mundo no van a vivir a costas de un gobierno ilegal que está amenazando con armas de destrucción masiva. Estamos en este momento enfrentando este reto para no tener que después enfrentarnos a un reto en las calles de nuestras ciudades. La única manera que podemos evitar la duración de esta amenaza es utilizar una fuerza.
No vamos a aceptar ningún resultado que no sea la victoria. Mis queridos ciudadanos, los peligros para nuestro país y para el mundo van a ser vencidos. Vamos a pasar por este tiempo con orgullo y llevaremos adelante la meta de la paz. Vamos a llevar la libertad a otros y vamos a ganar, no vamos a fallar. Que Dios bendiga a este país y a todos los que lo defienden. Han sido las palabras del presidente de los Estados Unidos, George W. Bush. Interesante, María Elena, el presidente sigue insistiendo, al igual como en su discurso anterior, la vinculación entre terrorismo y esta guerra. Es decir, decía el presidente, si en estos momentos no atacamos con el ejército, con la Fuerza Aérea, con la Fuerza Naval a Saddam Hussein, después tendremos que hacerlo con bomberos, con policías, en actos terroristas dentro de nuestro territorio.
Así es, ese es un argumento que utilizó, por supuesto, el presidente de los Estados Unidos para convencer al pueblo norteamericano de la importancia de llegar a esta guerra, a pesar de que no tenían la aprobación de las Naciones Unidas. Ahora, durante varios meses el presidente y Colin Powell, secretario de Estado, intentaron por todos los medios de mostrar evidencias que vinculaban a Saddam Hussein y al gobierno iraquí con el peligro del terrorismo, con armas de destrucción masiva. Como no existe ninguna amenaza directa de Saddam Hussein y del pueblo y de los iraquíes al gobierno de los Estados Unidos, el pueblo de los Estados Unidos, el argumento del gobierno es que existe la posibilidad de que puedan desarrollar esas armas y que a su vez esas armas puedan ser entregadas en el futuro a terroristas. Ese vínculo a futuro que puede existir entre Saddam Hussein y terroristas es precisamente el argumento que ha utilizado el presidente de los Estados Unidos, George Bush.
Como les habíamos dicho desde el principio de esta cobertura, vamos a tratar de ir intercalando elementos militares, elementos políticos, elementos de análisis y también, por supuesto, el lado humano. Es decir, no podemos olvidarnos ni pensar en una guerra en términos abstractos. Son hombres y mujeres que están luchando en esta guerra, tanto del lado norteamericano como del lado iraquí. Hemos hablado con Carlos Ruiz hace unos minutos y ahora nos acompaña Rocío Ramírez, María Elena. Rocío Ramírez es la madre de Allen Ramírez y le agradecemos muchísimo que que nos acompaña en esta cobertura, señora Rocío. Usted escuchó al presidente Bush hablar hace unos momentos. ¿Qué le pareció el discurso del presidente? ¿Se siente usted un poco más tranquila después de haberlo escuchado o su situación de madre le evita vivir momentos de tranquilidad ahora?
No, todo lo contrario. Al escucharlo hablar, pues me dio más seguridad y tranquilidad porque pues yo confío de que todo lo que esté pasando allí sea por bien de otros y aunque tengo mi hijo allá, pues tengo la esperanza de que pues sea algo rápido y conciso como él lo ha prometido. Pues como él dice, espero que las tropas que están allá vengan sanas y salvas.
Señora Rocío, ¿qué es lo que le dijo su hijo Allen sobre la operación, el operativo que tiene que realizar allá y dónde se encuentra él? ¿Cuál es su responsabilidad?
Bueno, exactamente la responsabilidad es un poquito, pues, por decirlo así, no tenía estricto control de no hablar de eso, respectivamente de su trabajo.
O sea que es una operación secreta la que tiene que realizar su hijo. Él le dijo algunas palabras antes de partir para que usted no se preocupara. ¿Qué fue lo que le dijo?
El inicio de esta guerra, el presidente...
Something goes awry over here.
Presumably coming in over Saudi Arabian airspace, Ken, I would guess.
That we're able now to establish again from Baghdad. There is some traffic, not a lot, but there is some traffic on the street. It does not look to us to be military vehicles, though some of it might be, but there is still some traffic moving as we approach about 6:30 in the morning in Baghdad. Nick, stay with us for as long as you can hold the phone line. John King at the White House, the president made all of the points that he has in many respects been making for the last several weeks, if not months. This is not a war against Islam.
An explosion in the center of the city, which could have been anti-aircraft firing into the sky. That was 5 minutes ago. Nothing's happened since then.
Peter Arnett, now it is dawn, and I don't know what scene you have. I can just tell you that we're looking out over some of the memorials and the broad corniche of Baghdad and to a fairly clear sky there, some cumulus clouds. What are you seeing now on the streets of Baghdad, and are you hearing anything on local radio, or is there anything at all on television?
Well, what we during President Bush's speech, Tom, there was just the constant rumble of anti-aircraft fire again to the north.
And would require a long and sustained effort to build up a new Iraq in the wake of this war. So Mr. Bush speaking both directly to the Arab citizens of the Middle East, also to the citizens here at home in laying out the early hours of what he promised would be a campaign using decisive force. We are witnessing the early moments of the war in Iraq, a much more controversial war than the president launched in October 2001 against the Taliban and al-Qaeda. And in this campaign to remove Saddam Hussein from power, we are seeing the first test of this very controversial Bush administration policy in which this president says he has the right as Commander-in-Chief of the United States to attack a nation if he perceives it to be a threat against the United States, even if it has not attacked the United States.
Again, as you look at Baghdad, it is eerie when you consider that it's clear from the president's words, the early stages of the disarmament of Iraq have begun. The war, whether it is the full, massive rollout that we all anticipated and were told to expect, or something of a smaller scale, as you look at Baghdad, it is
country, and if we get reports starting from Basra, the south, and even in the north, that it'll have more resemblance of what we've been talking about. But the war is on, and it will be a massive, and I assure you, 1,000 targets today.
Well, obviously we'll be watching eagerly and waiting eagerly for reports from other parts of the country. We're seeing, of course, the picture occasionally shift there from lighter to darker, but that doesn't have anything to do, I don't think, with any action in the skies. It simply has to do with the action on the lines and the satellite signals that bring those pictures to us. Shep, I wonder if we're beginning to hear anything further from
evidence this evening that there were overflights. I had the room open.
Most of what you heard near the end there, anti-aircraft fire. The tremendous explosions at the beginning believed to be the Tomahawk cruise missiles. And then the explosions heard later are believed to be, no way to confirm this yet, bunker buster, huge bombs, laser-guided bombs, dropped by F-117 stealth bombers, which came in behind the Tomahawk cruise missiles. Now, General Perry-Smith, why would we not be continuing this aerial activity over Baghdad now as the daylight grows greater, and as we can see in the live picture, nothing is happening there now? Why not keep laying it on them?
That's the problem. In the day, prisoners, they expect prisoners.
A bit of what we understand up to this point, thanks to CBS for that, of the...
Probably going to have to...
hasta que aparezca la guía y desaparezca la injusticia. Y que el alba sea el camino para hacer frente a todo lo malo. Jalen el gatillo y sigan luchando. Saquen la espada. Nadie triunfará si no es hombre y si no es valiente. Y preparen una bandera y preparen el camino de Dios, que la herida sanará pronto. Queridos amigos, los que piden el mal en el mundo, los que combaten contra el mal en el mundo, con ellos será paz. Bush subestimó el valor de ustedes, que declararon ustedes contra la guerra, y su convocatoria honrada por la paz. Y él cometió este crimen vergonzoso este día. Nosotros prometemos en nombre nuestro y en nombre del mando y la cúpula y en nombre del pueblo combatiente y su ejército heroico, en la historia de la civilización, prometemos que haremos frente a los invasores y que, Dios mediante, los echaremos al límite donde perderán la paciencia y perderán toda esperanza de lograr aquello a lo que los llevaron los sionistas criminales y los que tienen sus idearios y programas. Llegarán a los niveles más bajos y serán derrotados. Una derrota que esperamos tengan después de que se revele su injusticia y su mal. Nosotros amamos la paz y hacia la paz trabajamos. Irak será victorioso, vencerá, y con Irak nuestra nación y la humanidad vencerá, y el mal sufrirá lo que lo hace incapaz, hasta ser incapaz de cometer mal o crimen alguno, a un nivel similar al de los sionistas estadounidenses, la alianza sionista estadounidense contra las naciones. Al frente va nuestra digna nación árabe. Dios es grande, Dios es grande. Al inicio, al frente va nuestra nación. Dios es grande, Dios es grande. Viva Irak y Palestina. Dios es grande, Dios es grande. Y nuestra nación árabe, nuestra digna nación, viva esta nación. Y la hermandad humana, viva con quienes aman la paz y la seguridad y el derecho de los pueblos en libertad, según la justicia y la igualdad. Dios es grande. Que los perdedores pierdan. ¡Viva Irak! Viva la yihad y viva Palestina.
Bueno, estamos viendo aquí el discurso de Saddam Hussein en respuesta al ataque militar por parte de fuerzas de Estados Unidos, y también notábamos que hay una similitud entre el discurso que escuchamos por parte del presidente George W. Bush a las 10:15 de la noche y el discurso
Iraqi TV, an earlier report that they had gone off the air.
Bush, but in any case, he wasn't paying the President of the United States a compliment and described this as a crime against Iraq and a crime against humanity. It is the duty of all good people to protect our dear nation. He said, I am not afraid. And then, and this is important, 3 different times as I heard it, he referred to Zionists, the American Zionist Alliance. He said, long live Palestine. It is certainly the Iraqi president's hope that the Arab world will see this in the context of the long and difficult dispute between the Palestinians and the Israelis. That in Arab capitals, that Islamic citizens will rise up in some way, shape, or form, and that will protect or deflect some of what is about to come visited upon Iraq. And so we heard it at least 3 times, this notion that this is an American Zionist, read that, Israeli alliance. The question, I suppose, Nick Robertson, or one question, Nick, is whether in fact that was Saddam Hussein. He's a man we know with a number of lookalikes or doubles. Do we know with absolute certainty that we were listening to the Iraqi president?
It would certainly seem at this time that every intention was given to convey that this was the real President Saddam Hussein. He is known to have a number of doubles, and perhaps analyzing that carefully would be difficult because of the large glasses, the beret, and the fact that his collar was pulled up quite highly. It would take a very sophisticated set of analysis, I think, of pictures of him to make a determination. It sounded
It's really kind of fascinating to read the talking points because you see how carefully they've been put together.
What is the most important thing you want the American people to understand?
Sexual advances towards White House aide Kathleen Willey. The memo guides Tripp through a series of possible lies, telling her, quote, you find it completely plausible that she smeared her lipstick, untucked her blouse, etc., end quote.
Somebody who knows how to deal with grand juries put those together, and it's clear.
The memo goes on to tell Tripp, quote, you never observed the president behaving inappropriately with anybody, end quote. A statement that is also repeated later in the memo. Reports say that Starr doesn't believe Lewinsky wrote the memo by herself and has seized her computer searching for clues. In 10 days, President Clinton
broke his silence about the Lewinsky scandal.
Well, I've already said that the charges are false, but there is an ongoing investigation. Do the work for the American people that I was hired to do.
And so while Lewinsky vacations with her father, the clock is ticking and the world waiting for her
next move.
Edition. She's captured an entire nation without uttering a sound. Today, exclusive video of Monica Lewinsky like you've never seen before. She's saying,
looking for a filter for your Ferrari?
On the video that sheds a new light on Lewinsky, and we should warn you, her language isn't always ladylike.
Tell everyone what Mr. P's t-shirt on my face.
Doesn't seem like the girl you've been watching for 2 weeks. You've seen every turn of her head, every whisper of a smile. You've seen the seemingly familiar...
Look, she shoots the president after they embrace.
But what you haven't seen is the real Monica Lewinsky speak. Monica Lewinsky now has her own set of coaches, and you can be sure by the time Monica is ready to tell her story,
she will be prepared, laid over,
and ready for prime time.
I think she's loving it, because here she is, the center of attention on every TV show, every newspaper.
I don't believe her lawyer.